Hello, besties. How are all of you? Hope you're well. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today, I'm covering another Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles character. This video was actually requested by Cindy Wolf Gamer, so shout out to them. Hope they enjoy this video. Just a side note before we begin, I would like to say that yes, I still plan to do those other requests. They'll come eventually, no worries. Another thing before we begin, my disclaimer, just putting out there that this is no professional speaking. I'm just super into psychology and fandoms, and this channel is the result. So please don't take any of my research as gospel, because there's always a chance that I could be wrong. As you know, this analysis is gonna be on Leo. For starters, Leo stands out to me in this series. I love how he's more fleshed out character-wise. This is coming from someone who is personally slightly annoyed with 2012 Leo being just the broody I must stay on task and be leader stereotype. If you know, you know. However, another thing I picked up about Rise Leo that stands out to me is how far he goes to be accepted. In the 2012 series, for instance, Leo was the leader of the group and his brothers kind of looked to him for guidance. With Raph being the leader in Rise, which I must admit I really enjoy, I noticed that Leo doesn't have that validation and very evidently needs it. I mean, he constantly makes puns and goes, "Guys, I'm funny, right?" It is literally almost like he's scared people will leave him or get bored of him or something. So why is that? So, to answer that question, I looked further into what a fear of abandonment is, and I found a Healthline article that gives more details. The symptoms, as shown here, are sort of hard to translate into Leo's character. One thing that does immediately stand out to me, though, is that need of reassurance constantly. Like I just mentioned, Leo will make puns and jokes and try to brush a lot of stuff off to cope with what he's experiencing.
So, you guys from Jersey?
Really, Leo?
What? I can't make a joke in the middle of the craziest thing ever? That's how I cope.
He's obviously putting up this carefree act so as to appear cool to his brothers. However, the more I think about it, the more the puns sort of lead me to the first point, of fear of intimacy, perhaps. I know, it's a long shot, but Leo's siblings complain time and time again when he makes puns, showing clear distaste. And for those who think it's not obvious, there's literally an episode where Donnie makes Leo a suit that zaps him when he cracks a joke.
You beat me when pigs fly.
I mean, it literally can't get more evident than that Leo's puns are not seen in a positive light. So maybe Leo does it on purpose. It's most likely nowhere near to the extreme of like leaving his brothers before they can leave him, but it may be in order to keep them slightly distant from him. But it makes no sense. Nobody's ever abandoned Leo, right? So why would he have anxiety centralized around abandonment? That's right. Leo wasn't abandoned. Not in a physical sense. Allow me to elaborate. Fear of abandonment in itself is more of an umbrella term, and there are different types. In Leo's case, I believe he's experiencing a fear of abandonment on a more emotional scale. See the last sentence there. If you've experienced emotional abandonment in the past, especially as a child, you may live in perpetual fear that it may happen again. In risk factors, neglect and stress are what I really want to emphasize here. If Leo is indeed experiencing these emotional abandonment issues, where did they originate from? The answer? A mix of Master Splinter's parenting, as well as the dangers he's currently being put in while on missions with his brothers. Splinter clearly isn't the closest to his sons in Rise. He just doesn't seem to care as much as he should. He actually kind of avoids his sons to chill in his recliner.
That's how I like it. Now, leave me be. They're about to break out the scorpions.
Unfortunately, based on the way the turtles see it as normal, I wouldn't be surprised if Master Splinter was like this to them while growing up, too. What does this mean when it comes to emotional abandonment? Leo's emotional needs were not met enough growing up. He most likely felt unheard and maybe even unloved by his father. And because of this, he's scared to feel abandoned like that again, to be left without emotional support. With this being said, now throw in the fact that these missions the turtles go on are incredibly dangerous and full of risks for death. While Leo has his brothers who are there for him, it wouldn't be far-fetched of me to say that he knows there's a strong possibility for his brothers to suffer brutal injuries or even die in battle. Due to this, the argument that Leo's puns are to possibly push away from his brothers is reinforced. So obviously, Leo's going through like a lot of stress and a lot of anxiety. And so I was like, what if he has a generalized anxiety disorder? So I went on to Mayo Clinic, and their article on anxiety, or like generalized anxiety disorder to be specific, and I looked on the symptoms for teens. Some of these definitely sound like Leo, or at least what we went over when it comes to Leo. He definitely feels overly anxious to fit in. He absolutely lacks a confidence. He strives for approval. He requires a lot of reassurance about performance. I mean, dang. And here are the risk factors. Now, personality doesn't really come into play when it comes to Leo. He's not really a timid or negative person, and I don't think he avoids danger, to say the least. However, genetics is interesting, because if you saw my Donnie analysis, I kind of touched on the fact that he might have something anxiety related too. And lastly, experiences. People with generalized anxiety disorder may have a history of significant life changes, traumatic or negative experiences during childhood, or a recent traumatic or negative event. Kinda sounds like what we just went over, doesn't it? So there you have it. Based on my research and the evidence from the show Given, I believe that Leo may be dealing with a fear of emotional abandonment caused by childhood neglect and the current stresses that come with fighting bad guys. And that does it. Thanks so much for watching. If you did like my content, feel free to like or subscribe, or even just leave a comment. Your input means a lot to me, and I'm always willing to hear others' takes on this kind of stuff. Like I mentioned at the beginning, I may be factually wrong in some parts. If this occurs, please leave a comment with the proper corrections, and I will totally pin you. Slay all day or night, wherever you are. Love you, besties. Mwah.